What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Cross Country Bank Angler. So 2024 is wrapping up here. This is probably going to be my last video of the year. It's been a challenging year for me, I would say. You know, a lot of transitions, a lot of change has been happening for me, and I've had to meet it head on. So, you know, there were some times during the year where I really didn't upload as much as I would have normally liked to. I kind of had to take a break just to handle some of the changes and transitions and challenges that I was facing this year. But despite all that, we still managed to get past 1,000 subscribers this year. That's one of those kind of YouTuber milestones that you're expected to reach if you want to kind of monetize your channel. So the goal for 2025 will be working up the watch hours. You know, you want to get 4,000 watch hours. So, you know, if you subscribe to the channel, you know, ways you can kind of help me towards that goal is, you know, one, to try to watch as many of the videos as you can as they come out. You know, try to watch all the new videos, become a regular viewer of my content. And two is to try to watch the video all the way through, if possible. You know, sometimes the average view length on these videos is somewhat short, so I would love to see more people watching through to the end. That's going to really help me get those watch hours up for the coming year. But yeah, if you're a subscriber, if you're a supporter, whether you're someone that subscribed a few months ago or someone that's been here for a couple of years, I just want to say thank you. I don't necessarily, you know, this is something I do for fun, right? I'm not necessarily expecting this channel to blow up out of nowhere in the current environment. You know, there's a ton of YouTube fishing content now on YouTube that there really wasn't a few years ago. But you know, the environment has changed. It's heavily saturated, but I still enjoy the viewership that I do receive and the audience that I do have. So I just want to make it clear that I appreciate you guys, and hopefully in the future I'll be able to show you my appreciation in some exciting ways, maybe some giveaways next year. We'll see how things go. But I always do a video at the end of the year. This is probably why you clicked on it, for the baits and lures that works best for me. So I always do my top 5, and that's kind of what I'm going to be doing this year as well. There were definitely some lures that just stood out this year that I really hadn't tried much before, and there's some old standbys in here as well. So without further ado, let's get started with the countdown for 2024, my top 5 lures. Number 5 on my list this year is going to be a buzzbait, a topwater lure, a buzzbait. This is one that made the list last year as well. I think this was actually my number 1 lure last year because it caught some big fish and it caught a lot of fish. I want to be a little more specific though. I'm really talking about a downsized buzzbait, not a typical size. So this one right here, this is one that you could pick up at most of your local tackle shops, I would say. This is a Strike King Mini Pro Buzz. It's a 1/8 ounce head. This is a black one. I think they have a white one and a chartreuse one as well, but this thing is a killer, guys. If you're fishing smaller bodies of water, you know, ponds, smaller creeks. It's got a pretty small little buzz blade on it, but it's all you really need. And I've just caught a bunch of fish on this over these. This is the first buzzbait, or first model of buzzbait that I ever picked up. But I also made some of my own buzzbaits. Get a load of this. These are actually inline buzzbaits. So a little bit of a different design, more like an inline spinner. And you do want to fish these with a snap swivel attached to your line to avoid line twist like you would with a spinner. Both of these colors caught fish this year. Caught a nice bass on this one. and multiple bass and chain pickerel on this black and gold. This is probably my favorite color. Love this little lure. It looks like a squid or something. But yeah, I built these. They work at like a number 6 treble on these, so not quite as weed resistant, but I think sometimes that treble will help you with your hookups. So if you want to pick up one of these hand-built buzz baits, I will be working on adding these to my lure shop on Etsy. I link that in the description of every video, so if you're interested in these, I will post an update once they are in the shop. But yeah, these buzz baits are just probably my favorite top water right now. You can just cover a bunch of water, retrieve them around, shallow cover over the tops of grass beds, and you're gonna catch some bass and probably other stuff as well. Chain pickerel, I bet bowfin, whatever kind of game fish you have in your area, pike, all that stuff would eat one of these buzz baits. So that lure has come back for 2024 into my top 5. And then next on the list, this is also another one that's kind of a repeat, but kind of isn't. So I've talked about, Senko style worms, I think either last year or the year before, as one of my top performing lures. But this time I'm specifically talking about those baits used on a wacky rig, which is probably one of the most popular ways to fish them. So here's the bait I have for you. This is not your typical stick bait here. This is a Bass Pro Shops brand plastic. This is called the Wacky Stick, or the Wacky Stik-O. And it's kind of got like a flared out ends on it. More of a texture, kind of ribbed texture on here to create a little more vibration. So it's, I guess, more specifically intended for a wacky rig versus, rigging it, with like a wide gap hook, which is what I've kind of done more in the past, and what I still prefer for heavier cover. But yeah, this jig head, I like a wacky rig with a weight. This is a 1/16 ounce wacky jig head. I do tend to like that more than just a plain old hook. This color here, this is like I think it's called Green Pumpkin Magic. I like some kind of variation on Green Pumpkin in clearer water most of the time. But yeah, I had a couple of good days fishing the river, finesse fishing for smallmouth bass in an area that, the fish are very picky, very finicky, gets a lot of pressure, the water's super clear, they're super skittish, you can spook them from a long way off, but we're still coming out to grab this worm. Great little falling action on this soft plastic and this wacky rig. See, number 3 on my list is a lure that I really haven't talked about much at all on the channel in the previous years, but this year it just ended up being a good player for me, both in spring, especially in the spring, and also in the fall. And that's going to be a lipless crankbait. My favorite lipless crankbait to use is this model right here. I actually have two different colors in the same model. This is the Cotton Cordell Super Spot. It's a super budget-friendly lipless crankbait. You can get one for about $4, probably, maybe $5 at like a Walmart. And these things, I think for bank fishing, they're a really good option because they're inexpensive. So if you lose them, it's not a huge loss. A lipless crank is not necessarily the ideal bank fishing lure for a lot of people because it sinks and it's got these big trebles that can snag up easily. So you're at a pretty high risk of losing them if you're not careful. And I definitely do lose them pretty easily. But it's something I think every bank angler should have in their arsenal, especially for bass in the fall and in the spring. If you're just covering relatively open water, I don't really fish these around a lot of wood most of the time. It's just when I'm trying to make a lot of casts and cover water, that's when I really like that Cotton Cordell Super Spot. I just kind of retrieve it, mostly a straight retrieve. I usually don't go that fast. I I just want to feel that lure vibrating and rattling, and then I'll give it some pauses and pulls. You know, I like to pull it a little bit and reel out the slack and pause. And I just had a really nice day catching bass on that. And then also in this category is a lure that took me by surprise, which was this little guy right here. This is the Handing M1 rattling lipless crankbait. This company, Handing, you know, it's a smaller tackle company, online only as far as I know. They sent me a 3-pack, a little kit of these baits, and this is my favorite color of all of them, this purple with a chartreuse belly. But these things turned out really good. You know, I took these out on a pretty tough day, pretty tough fall day conditions. You know, it was pretty kind of hot, honestly, for the time of year. And I mean, these things, the design looks a little unusual, I would say, but you know, they have a kind of a lighter rattle in them, not nearly as loud as like the Super Spot, and just a really downsized finesse profile. And I was able to kind of hop around to a couple of different lakes and catch some bass with this thing. So I will leave a link for this one in the description of this video. And if you do buy a pack of these from that link, I do get a little bit of a kickback. So, you know, a little bit of a financial benefit if you do that. So I encourage you to check these out. If you like lipless cranks, I think you'll really enjoy fishing these. They have a good vibration. Yeah, this little thing, it looks kind of funny, but it works, guys. So definitely check those out. Like I said, link in the description. Fun little lure that I will definitely be planning on using a little bit more next year. So number 2 on the list here is kind of like a repeat from past years, but not exactly. It's what I would consider a variation on a paddletail swim bait. It's just like, yeah, I'll just call it a Paddletail Grub, is what you know, if you're looking for something like this in the stores. But it is basically a swim bait. And probably the best example of this that I can think of is the Bobby Garland slider, the crappie slider. Here's one that it's actually pretty battle worn here that I used back in the spring and did really well on. This is like a pumpkin type color, but this is the Bobby Charlie Brewer crappie sliders, and this is on like a little, I don't know, that's like a 1/32 ounce maybe jig head, but I caught, yeah, so many different species on this. This is probably, of all the lures I've talked about so far, the best for multi-species. You know, perch, multiple species of perch, multiple species of sunfish, bass, crappie, all sorts of stuff will hit these, and it's just a great little imitation of a little bait fish swimming in the water with that itty bitty tail back there. It's kind of more subtle than a regular paddle tail swim bait is. It's just kind of kicking back there. It doesn't, you know, the body doesn't roll back and forth a whole lot or anything like that. I actually picked up another color in those crappie sliders as well. It's black with a chartreuse tail. That color combo usually does good around me for a bunch of different species, so I'm excited to try out that new color. All right, here's some more examples here. This is like a different one that I got, slightly smaller, from Little Parts Online, actually. This is just a green pumpkin. And yeah, this thing was a killer on bait finesse, great bait finesse option, ultralight. Just a downsized bait, and it just caught so many species. Chain pickerel. I can't even begin to name them all. And then here's another one here, 1/32 ounce, kind of like a white kind of pearl color with some black flake. Great little bait, you know, tiny bait fish imitator. Everything will hit this, guys. All you gotta do is cast them and reel them in, pretty much. You can kind of jig them a little bit too if you need to, you know, stroll them. But yeah, deadly deadly multi-species bait, and I definitely will keep these in the arsenal because I just love these kind of downsized options, these multi-species friendly lure options when I'm just out wading in the summer in a creek or what have you. All right, so for my final lure of the year, my number one lure for the year is going to have to be some kind of shallow diving crankbait. I think when people think about shallow cranks, they usually are thinking square bills. Those are super popular, great for banging into wood and banging into rocks. But for me, the square bill, there are some situations where I will use it, and I have caught a good number of fish with the square bill. And I'm not new to crankbait fishing. I've had some good luck over the years with them. I've definitely built some confidence with certain models. This is an example here that has done well for me in the past. This is that Rebel Crawl, and kind of a tan and orange pattern. I don't remember exactly what this color is called, but this has been a great river bait over the years. But I feel like I gained a new confidence in shallow running crankbait, and not a square bill. Just different types of crankbaits that were non-square bill for whatever reason. And the first one has got to be this, guys. This lure, I think, probably caught more bass for me than any other lure, probably. I've caught fish in the dead of winter on it. I've caught fish in the spring, and I've caught fish in the fall on it. It's a balsa wood bait. This is the Rapala Ott's Garage Tiny 4. That's the name of it. The OG Tiny 4. It's a pretty small crankbait. I think it weighs like 1/4 of an ounce, 5/16 of an ounce. Got some pretty big, nasty hooks on it. I actually mashed down some of the barbs on these hooks because there was one day where the pickerel were just getting it really well, and they were getting hard to unhook. But yeah, you might be able to see even some of the scratches and the teeth marks on the back of it there. That's from pickerel and bass just trying to clobber this thing. I love that this is such a great color too. I think it's called Brim. It's worked really well. It's got a white belly, dark back, kind of fading to green and yellow with some orange on the chin. A thin kind of circuit board type bill, and this is a flat-sided crankbait. Look how thin this crankbait is. So it just has a less exaggerated action to it, a more natural action, I would say. Not quite as aggressive of a vibration. It's great for cold water, but it's also going to be great if the fish are just pressured. So yeah, this is going to be a staple for me in the coming years. I can tell. I'm going to keep holding on to these. I'm going to probably try to get another color for this, maybe like a crawl pattern or maybe a shad pattern. But yeah, kind of tricky to cast on a bait caster. You have to have a good setup for this to really work well on a bait caster. I haven't had that much trouble. I've kind of casted it on a medium power rod and done okay. But just keep that in mind. You're going to want a lighter rod, lighter line, and a good quality reel that can kind of handle these less aerodynamic wood baits, balsa wood. But maybe there's something to the balsa wood, guys. Balsa wood cranks, and there's some people swear by them. Some people say that doesn't really matter. Plastic works fine, but this has made me want to try a couple of different balsa cranks. So I might be trying to shoot a video on balsa wood crankbaits in the coming year. Trying them out, a few different models that I've had my eye on, and fishing with them and seeing what they can do, because this thing definitely boosted my confidence. It's been torn up by fish. And there's some other models that worked well this year too. There's just this small one I threw on the ultralight back in the spring in the creek. This is a bomber. I think it's just called the Fat A. Bomber Fat A. I used this one and then another one, a different color. This is called chartreuse baby bass, and I think it was just like a regular baby bass. I used both of those to great effect in a creek. I think the other one got bitten off by a chain pickle, of course. Yeah, fun little ultralight lure or bait finesse. This thing could definitely, you could definitely throw this on bait finesse and have a lot of fun. Good little action on it. Got just the lightest little rattle, but cool little bait. Been around for a long time. Bomber. Then there's this other one. I just had one day where this really stood out for me. Late in the summer, creek fishing. This is a Rebel humpback crankbait. Unique profile to it. This is a lure that I found on the shore of a lake, just kind of floating last year, about a year ago. So I fixed it up, put some hooks on it. It's fun to get kind of an older lure like this to work, especially one that you found. And speaking of old lures, this is, I want to mention this just for a second because it, I took it out in just one day and I've done pretty good with it. So this is the Spinnerbait from Eurolure. Just a gold minnow color. I just took this out. I randomly found this lure, but I had fun with it. It caught some bass and other species. So this I'll be in the arsenal for the time being until I lose it. It's got a nice vibration. It's a sinking jointed lure, so a little bit different from these others. But I did want to mention it really briefly. I also want to do a really quick honorable mention of some lures that caught the biggest fish for me this year. First one is going to be this guy right here. This is from 10,000 Fish. It's called the Spinnerbait. You may have heard, this is something, from that kind of Carl's bait and tackle, that world. It's a unique connection to the blade and the wire, and the head is actually free spinning here. This is almost like a beetle spin, almost, the way the head is sort of free spinning, but you cast this out, big profile on it, and the blade kind of swings back and forth, and it causes the whole lure to kind of rock. And I caught a big bass on that one of my first trips out in the spring. Let's actually run that footage real quick.
Like if you reel it faster, it'll plane up to the surface, kind of like a typical spinnerbait. We got a fish, guys. Right in front of us. That's a good one. That's a good one, guys. On the cycle bait. Oh my gosh, yes. You smoked it, guys. This is a giant. Woo! Look at that, guys. All right, people. 5.4 pounder. Exploring a new lake. 10,000 fish cycle bait. Biggest we've weighed in a long time. Let's get him back in the water. Get a good release. Beautiful fish, guys. Amazing bass. Just amazing. Wow. Freaking giant.
And then as the trailer here, I opted for a straight tail trailer since it seems like, a paddle tail would be kind of overpowered by the aggressive kind of swinging back and forth. This is another lure from 10,000 Fish. It's the Yodo worm is what it's called. It's got this really nice kind of texture ribbing to it. Pretty strong scent. This color's called sungill. This is like a bluegill imitating pattern here. Pretty big, aggressive presentation, but I did catch a couple of bass on it, so I will keep that in the arsenal. I got another color in this as well to try. And then this was the other lure that caught a big one for me this year. Unfortunately, I did not have my camera gear when I caught it. I'll put up some pictures of the fish because it was a nice one. Probably also in like the 5 to 6 pound range here. This is a Head and Super Spook Junior. A pretty old traditional style of like walking bait. And this thing is, you know, this type of lure, this category of lures, I don't have a ton of confidence in. I've tried these walking lures for a couple years, and this was really the first nice fish that I really caught on, and it was an exceptionally big one. This is kind of like a chrome sexy shad pattern. Got a pretty big knocker in it. Alright, so that's going to wrap things up for this video. Just going through the year, you know, it's always nice to kind of reflect on the fishing and how the channel has changed and grown, and the different techniques that I worked. So stay tuned for 2025. I'm going to hit the ground running here, you know, hopefully do a few videos over the winter. Thanks for watching and subscribing and supporting, and I'll see you in 2025.